The Kim household was the kind of quiet that only money can buy. Deep, settled. The quiet of marble floors and high ceilings, and a life built so carefully that nothing uninvited could get through the door. Elena lay on her side of the bed, one hand resting on her bump, eyes closed, breathing slow. The picture of a woman at peace. She was not at peace. She had been awake for 20 minutes, ever since Kenji's phone lit up the ceiling like a signal flare, and he had reached for it with a speed that was just slightly too fast for a man with nothing to hide. She heard him slide out of bed, heard his bare feet on the marble, heard the bedroom door open and close with the careful precision of someone who did not want to be heard. She lay still for another 30 seconds. Then she sat up slowly in the dark. Through the gap at the bottom of the door, she could see the thin line of light from the hallway. She could hear his voice, low, controlled, the voice he used when the conversation required absolute privacy. She could not make out the words, but she heard one name, just one, spoken once. Quickly, like he caught himself and swallowed the rest of it back down. So-yeon. Elena sat in the dark with that name sitting in her chest like a stone she had never felt before. Not anger, not panic. Something quieter and more dangerous than either. She reached over to Kenji's side of the bed, still warm. She pulled her hand back, folded both hands in her lap, sat perfectly straight in the dark like a queen who had just been told that something was coming for her crown. "Who," she said quietly to nobody, "is So-yeon?" The bedroom door opened. Kenji slipped back in, slid back under the covers with that same careful precision. Elena closed her eyes, evened her breathing. She felt him look at her for a long moment before he settled. She did not move, did not speak. But behind her closed eyes, her mind was already moving like a machine that had just been switched on and would not stop until it had every answer it needed. "Hold on. Your husband just slipped out of bed at midnight to take a secret call from a woman you have never heard of. What do you do? Do you confront him right there, or do you wait and gather your information first? Drop your answer in the comments right now. I need to know how you would handle this. And tell us where in the world you are watching from tonight. We have viewers from every corner of the globe, and we want to see your country in those comments. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is just getting started, and you cannot afford to miss a single chapter. So-yeon did not arrive like a woman running towards something. She arrived like a woman who had already won and was simply coming to collect. Private jet. Single black car waiting on the tarmac. No entourage, no fanfare. Just her. Ivory wool coat, dark hair pinned back, eyes that had spent years learning how to reveal nothing, and beside her, holding her hand with the quiet trust of a child who had never known anything but certainty, a boy, 7 years old. Designer clothes pressed perfectly, a face that was unmistakably his mother's in structure and shape. But the eyes belonged to someone else entirely. The car moved through the city smoothly, So-yeon watching the skyline with the expression of a woman reading a map she had memorized long ago. This city. Kenji's city. Elena's city now, or so everyone believed. Her phone buzzed, a message. "She doesn't know you're here yet. You have time." She smiled faintly, put the phone away, looked down at the boy beside her. "Jiho," she said softly. He looked up. "Are we home?" he asked. She looked back out at the skyline, at the building she knew without needing to be told housed the Kim Syndicate's main operations, at the city that had belonged to the man she had loved first, longest, deepest, and lost to a woman who didn't even know she existed. "Not yet," she said, "but soon." The car pulled up to the hotel, the most expensive suite in the city, booked under a name nobody would recognize. She stepped out, straightened her coat, took Chiho's hand. Then she made one call. One. "Marcus," she said when it connected, "I'm here," from wherever he was sitting in his exile, stripped, humiliated, watching the ruin of everything he had built, Marcus Hale smiled for the first time in months. "Welcome to the city," he said. "Let's burn it down." In the hotel suite, So-yeon unpacks one item before anything else. A photograph. Kenji and her younger, laughing, his arm around her shoulders. She sets it on the nightstand. Then she sets another photograph beside it. Kenji again, but this time he is standing next to Elena outside St. Jude's Academy. So-yeon looks at both photographs for a long time. Then she looks at Chiho, playing quietly on the floor. And her expression hardens into something that has been a long time coming. 6 months ago, Marcus Hale had nothing, no company, no home, no legal identity that hadn't been flagged, frozen, or transferred into the name of a 7-year-old boy who didn't even know he existed. No lawyers, no allies, no wife. She had signed those divorce papers before the ink on everything else was dry. He had a one-way ticket, a single suitcase, and the specific burning humiliation of a man who had been dismantled in public by a woman he had spent years dismissing. He sat in his exile apartment, small, anonymous, nothing like the life he had built, and he thought about Elena, about Kenji, about that hallway, about signing that document with a trembling hand while a 7-year-old boy's mercy was the only reason he was still breathing. He thought about it every single day. And then one night he stopped feeling sorry for himself and started thinking clearly. He started making calls. Quietly, carefully, the way a man makes calls when he has no power left, but still has information. And information used correctly is its own kind of weapon. It took him 3 months to find her, So-yeon Park, the name that existed in whispers at the edges of the Kim Syndicate's history, the woman Kenji had been promised to and walked away from. The woman nobody talked about because Kenji did not allow it. Marcus found her through a contact in Seoul, took another month to get a message through, another month of careful, patient conversation before she agreed to listen properly. He told her everything: Elena, Noah, the school, the empire, the new baby coming. The way Kenji looked at Elena like she was the only solid ground he had ever stood on. He watched her absorb each piece of information with the controlled stillness of a woman who had been managing her emotions around this subject for years. Then he told her the one thing that broke through that stillness. "She's pregnant again," he said. "Another Kim heir. Elena is cementing herself permanently. Your son will never be acknowledged as long as she is standing." The silence on the line lasted exactly 4 seconds. "Book me a flight," So-yeon said. Marcus leaned back in his chair and felt the first warmth he had felt in months spread through his chest. Marcus opens his laptop and pulls up a photograph of Elena walking into St. Jude's with Noah. He stares at it for a long time. Then he types one message to So-yeon. "Don't just take what's yours. Take everything she built, too." He hits send and smiles. Street. Jude's Academy on a Wednesday morning looked exactly as it always did. Polished, quiet, the particular hush of a place that took itself very seriously. Collins was at his desk reviewing the term calendar when his assistant knocked and told him there was a visitor, a donor, unscheduled but... And his assistant paused here in a way that communicated volumes. The kind of visitor you did not ask to reschedule. So-yeon walked into Collins's office like she had been there before. Ivory coat, silk blouse underneath. Heels that announced themselves on the hardwood without apology. Beside her, Jiho. Pressed clothes, quiet eyes, standing with a stillness that most adults spent their whole lives trying to achieve. Collins stood immediately, extended his hand. "Mrs. Park," she said, shaking it firmly. "So-yeon Park, I apologize for coming without an appointment. I was in the city and I wanted to see the school in person before making my decision." "Your decision?" Collins said carefully. She smiled, the kind of smile that had a price tag attached to it. "I have been considering a significant donation to St. Jude's. A new wing, perhaps. A library. Something that leaves a lasting mark. She looked around his office with the measured appreciation of a woman who knew exactly what things cost. I understand you recently received a very generous endowment from the Kim family. Collins shifted slightly. We have been fortunate with our donors, yes. I would like to be more fortunate for you, she said simply. Shall we discuss numbers? The number she named made Collins reach for his water glass. It was exactly double Elena's endowment. To the dollar. Collins looked at Chiho standing quietly beside her, and something moved across his face. A flicker of something he couldn't name, couldn't place, couldn't shake. The boy had the most familiar eyes he had ever seen on a child. That evening, Noah came home, dropped his bag at the door, and found Elena in the kitchen. Mom, he said, with the directness of a child who has not yet learned to soften difficult information. A lady came to school today. She was really beautiful. She had a little boy with her. Elena turned from the counter. Did she? He didn't say much, Noah said, climbing onto the stool. But Mom, he paused, frowned slightly the way he did when he was trying to find the right words for something that confused him. What is it, baby? Elena said carefully. Noah looked up. He had Dad's eyes. Elena sets down the knife she was holding, very slowly, very carefully, and the kitchen goes absolutely silent. She did not react in front of Noah. That was the first thing, the most important thing. She smoothed her expression back into something warm and normal and ordinary, asked him what he wanted for dinner, listened to him talk about his day with every appearance of a woman who was completely present and completely fine. She was neither. She put him to bed at 8:30, sat on the edge of his mattress until his breathing slowed and deepened into sleep, pressed a kiss to his forehead that lasted a second longer than usual. Then she stood up, walked to her study, closed the door, and made 3 phone calls. By midnight, the file was on her desk. She sat alone in the lamplight and read every page. So-yeon Park, 34 years old. Born into one of Seoul's oldest syndicate families. Built her own empire, properties, companies, legitimate fronts for considerably less legitimate operations after Kenji walked away from their arrangement. Not out of bitterness, out of fury that had been refined over years into something far more useful than emotion. The romantic history with Kenji, confirmed. Deep. Years long. The kind of history that doesn't fully close even when the chapter ends. Elena read that section twice, then continued. The boy, Jiho Park, 7 years old. Birth certificate listing father as unknown. Elena sat back in her chair and looked at that blank space where a father's name should have been. Unknown. She thought about Noah's face, his certainty. He had Dad's eyes. Children see things adults have learned to look past. She closed the file, sat in the silence of her study. This study, in this house, in this empire she had built and bled for, and refused to let anyone take from her. Then she thought about Kenji sleeping down the hall, the man who had stood beside her through everything, the man whose hand had been the steadiest thing in her world. She asked herself the question she had been circling for 3 hours. Does he know? And the fact that she didn't know the answer frightened her more than anything So-yeon Park could ever do. Elena opens the file one more time and finds something she missed the first time. A photograph tucked between the last 2 pages. Kenji, 3 years ago, standing at a private event, and beside him, Chiho. Small, young, looking up at Kenji with the open, uncomplicated trust of a child who recognizes something familiar. Kenji is looking back down at the boy, and his expression is not that of a stranger. Elena just found that photograph. Her husband has seen this child. He said nothing. If you were Elena in this moment, do you confront him tonight, or do you play it calm and gather more information first? Tell me what you would do in the comments right now. And where in the world are you watching this from? We have viewers from over 50 countries on this channel, and I want to see every single flag in those comments tonight. Subscribe and hit that bell, because what Elena does next is going to shake everything. She waited until morning. That was the thing about Elena that Marcus had never understood, and So-yeon was about to learn. She did not move from emotion. She moved from position. And you cannot find your position in the dark at midnight when your hands are shaking. So she slept, or lay still enough that it counted. And in the morning she dressed carefully. Deep burgundy silk blouse, tailored trousers, hair pinned back, and went downstairs and made breakfast like it was an ordinary Thursday. Kenji came down 20 minutes later, stopped in the kitchen doorway when he saw the table set, sat down slowly. They ate in a silence that felt normal on the surface and was absolutely not normal underneath. Elena waited until he had finished his coffee. Then she reached beside her chair and set So-yeon's file on the table between them. Kenji looked at it, then looked at her. She watched his face with the focused patience of a woman who had been reading people her entire life and did not miss things. He was not surprised enough. That told her everything before he said a single word. "Elena, tell me about So-yeon," she said quietly. "All of it, from the beginning." He told her. The promise their fathers made, the years together, walking away when he realized what he felt for Elena was something he had never felt before and could not sacrifice. So-yeon's anger, the silence that followed. Elena listened to every word without interrupting. Then she asked the question, "Does she have your child, Kenji?" The silence lasted 3 seconds. 3 seconds in which Elena watched something move across her husband's face. Not guilt exactly. Something older and heavier than guilt. The weight of a question he had been carrying for 3 years and had convinced himself he didn't need to answer. "I don't know," he said. "I heard something years ago, but she told me it wasn't true and You believed her because it was easier to believe her," Elena said. He didn't deny it. Elena nodded once, stood up, straightened her blouse with both hands. "Find out," she said, and walked out of the kitchen, leaving him sitting alone with the file and the cold remainder of his coffee and the specific, devastating weight of a woman's disappointment that doesn't shout, that simply withdraws. Kenji sits at that table for a long time. Then he picks up his phone, scrolls to a name he has never deleted, stares at it, and types 4 words. "We need to talk. Today." Elena requested the meeting herself. She did not ask Kenji's permission, did not tell him until it was already arranged. She called So-yeon's hotel directly, left her name with the front desk, and waited 40 minutes for the callback. When So-yeon's assistant called back, Elena picked up on the first ring. "Tomorrow," Elena said, "noon. Aurelius on 5th. Just us." A pause. Then So-yeon's voice, smooth, measured, Korean accent softened by years of international business. "Just us," she agreed. They arrived within 2 minutes of each other, So-yeon in ivory, Elena in deep red. 2 women who understood instinctively that what you wear to a meeting like this is its own kind of language. They sat across a white tablecloth in the quietest corner of the most expensive restaurant in the city, and they looked at each other properly for the first time. No guards visible, no assistants hovering, just 2 women and the considerable weight of everything that existed between them without either of them having chosen it. The conversation began politely, almost warmly, the particular warmth of 2 people who respect each other's intelligence too much to insult it with small talk. So-yeon spoke first. She wanted acknowledgement, for herself and for Jiho. She was not asking for Kenji back. She was asking for her son's birthright to be recognized. She had built her own empire. She did not need the Kim name to survive. But Jiho deserved to know who he was. Elena listened, really listened. The way she listened to everything, completely, without interruption, taking in not just the words but everything underneath them. Then she asked one question. "How long has he known about Jiho?" So-yeon looked at her steadily, reached into her bag, slid a photograph across the white tablecloth. Kenji, 3 years ago, Jiho beside him. And on Kenji's face, not the expression of a man meeting a stranger's child. Elena picked up the photograph, looked at it for a long time, set it down, picked up her wine glass, took one slow sip. "Thank you for meeting me, So-yeon," she said. Her voice was perfectly level. "I will be in touch." She stood, left first, the way she always left, like the room was hers to exit on her own terms. The car door closed behind her, and in the back seat of that car, alone, moving through the city that bore her husband's name, Elena let one tear fall. Just one, down her left cheek. She watched it in the window reflection. Then she wiped it away with one finger, picked up her phone, and started making calls. The first call she makes is not to Kenji. It is to Noah's school. She asks Collins one question. The boy who came with So-yeon Park, has she submitted an enrollment application? Collins hesitates. She has. Elena is quiet for a moment, then, process it. Elena fought on 2 fronts simultaneously. That was the thing about her. She never addressed one problem at a time because problems never arrived one at a time. Front 1 was the Empire. Within 48 hours of her meeting with So-yeon, the board of St. Jude's Academy received a private communication. The details of that communication were never made public. But the result was that So-yeon's donation offer, double Elena's endowment, enough to put her name on a building, was quietly, formally declined. Collins delivered the news to So-yeon's assistant by email, 3 sentences. Apologetic in tone, immovable in substance. So-yeon's key business partner in the city, a man who had been excited about their arrangement 2 weeks ago, called to say he needed more time. Then called again to say he needed to step back entirely. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. Every luxury property in the city was suddenly, mysteriously, completely booked. So-yeon's hotel suite became unavailable for extension. 3 alternative hotels had no vacancies. A 4th had a system issue that prevented new bookings. The city was closing around So-yeon like a fist. But here was the difference between So-yeon and Marcus. Marcus had panicked. Marcus had gone to parking lots and begged and sent surveillance photographs and made threats he had no power to back up. So-yeon adapted. She moved Jiho to a private residence she had purchased under a subsidiary company. A purchase made 6 months ago before she even landed. She had been planning contingencies before she ever booked the flight. She called Marcus. "She's pushing back," she said. "I expected that," Marcus said. "Use Jiho. Take him to the school. Let the city see him standing next to Noah. Let people ask the questions Elena can't answer publicly." So-yeon looked at her son across the room, playing quietly, unbothered, trusting completely in the safety of wherever his mother put him. She was quiet for a moment. "He is not a weapon," she said. "No," Marcus agreed, "but he is the truth. And the truth has a way of moving on its own once it's in the open." So-yeon ends the call and looks at Jiho for a long time. Then she makes a decision that Marcus did not anticipate and Elena did not prepare for. So-yeon brought Jiho to St. Jude's on a Friday morning. Not as a weapon, not as Marcus had suggested, not to parade him in front of the city and let rumor do the work. She brought him because Collins had confirmed his enrollment was being processed, and she wanted him to see the school, to walk the hallways, to understand that whatever happened between the adults in his life, this place was going to be his. She had not told Marcus she was coming. She had not told anyone. She and Jiho walked through the front doors at 9 a.m., she in a camel coat, he in a navy sweater and pressed trousers, his small hand in hers. The staff noticed immediately, the way staff always notice things in institutions where attention to detail is a professional requirement. Heads turned, eyes tracked. The boy who moved through that hallway with Kenji Kim's eyes in his face and So-yeon Park's composure in his spine. Word moved through the building the way word always moves in small contained worlds. Quickly, quietly, unstoppably. Elena arrived 23 minutes later. She had been in a meeting across town when Collins called. She did not rush. She finished what she was saying, excused herself calmly, and drove to the school with both hands steady on the wheel. She walked in and saw them at the end of the corridor. So-yeon saw her at the same moment. They looked at each other across the length of that hallway. Two women who had already said everything that needed to be said across a restaurant table. No new words required. Then Elena looked down, at Jiho. He was looking back at her with the open, unguarded curiosity of a child who had not yet learned to be afraid of complicated situations. Dark eyes, Kenji's jaw, a face that held absolutely no malice because malice has to be learned, and nobody had taught it to him yet. He tilted his head slightly. "Are you Noah's mum?" he asked. The hallway was very quiet. Elena looked at this child, this boy who had not chosen his parents, or his circumstances, or the war being fought over his existence, and felt something shift in her chest. Something that had nothing to do with strategy or empire or the cold calculations of a woman protecting what was hers. She crouched down to his level, looked him in the eyes. "I am," she said gently, "and you must be Chiho." He nodded, solemn, serious. "Noah talks about his school a lot," Chiho said. "He says it's the best one." Elena held the boy's gaze for a moment longer, then she stood. She looked at So-yeon, and what passed between them in that look was something that neither Marcus nor Kenji nor anyone watching from the edges of that hallway could fully translate. An understanding. Between two women who had both loved the same man, both built their lives around surviving what that love cost them, and both, in this moment, were looking at a child who deserved better than to be the battlefield. Elena turns to Collins, who has appeared nervously at the edge of the corridor. "Make sure Jiho's enrollment is prioritized," she says. "He starts Monday." Collins blinks. So-yeon goes completely still, and from somewhere down the hallway, Noah appears, school bag on his back, and stops when he sees the boy. The two children look at each other for the first time. And Chiho smiles. The same smile. The exact same smile as Kenji. The door to Kenji's study was closed when Elena got home. She knocked once, opened it without waiting for an answer. He was at his desk. He had been waiting. She could see it in the way he was sitting, not working, just waiting. The way a man waits when he knows a conversation is coming that he cannot prepare for adequately. She sat in the chair across from him. They looked at each other for a long moment. "Chiho starts at St. Jude's on Monday," she said. Something moved through Kenji's face, relief and pain arriving at the same time in the same expression. "Elena." "He is a child," she said. "He did not choose any of this. And he has your eyes, Kenji. He has been walking around with your eyes his whole life and not knowing why." She paused. "That ends." Kenji was quiet. The kind of quiet she had learned over years meant he was feeling something too large for immediate words. "What does this mean for us?" he asked finally. Elena looked at her husband. This man who was the most dangerous person she had ever met and the safest place she had ever stood. Who had not been perfect. Who had carried a silence he should have broken years ago. Who was sitting across from her now with no armor left and nowhere to hide. "It means," she said carefully, "that you have things to answer for, and we will get to every single one of them, but not today." She stood. "Today your son starts school on Monday, and you are going to call So-yeon and have the conversation you should have had 3 years ago." She walked to the door. "Elena," his voice stopped her. She turned. "I chose you," he said. "Every day I choose you. That has never changed. She looked at him for a long moment. I know, she said. That's why you still have a marriage to fight for. She walked out. She found Noah in the garden, kicking a ball against the wall, with the focused repetition of a boy working something out in his head. She sat on the steps and watched him for a while. He stopped, came and sat beside her, leaned his head against her arm the way he had done since he was small enough to fit in the crook of it. Mom, he said, is Chiho going to be my brother? Elena put her arm around her son, looked out at the garden, at the life she had built from nothing, from pain, from the specific determination of a woman who had been told she didn't belong and had decided, quietly, permanently, without drama, that she belonged everywhere she chose to stand. He's going to be your family, she said, whatever that looks like. Noah considered this with the seriousness he brought to everything. Okay, he said, and went back to his ball. Elena sat on those steps with one hand on her bump, and the evening light falling across the garden, and the particular peace of a woman who has walked through fire so many times she has stopped being afraid of the heat. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up. A message. Unknown number. 3 words and a flight number. Round 3. Ready? Elena stared at it for a long moment. Then she smiled, that slow, cold, morning before the storm smile that Marcus had never learned to read correctly and probably never would. She typed back 2 words. Already waiting. Put the phone in her pocket, picked up her coffee, and watched her son play in the fading light of everything she had refused to let anyone take from her. The queen never loses. She just changes the game. Elena just did something nobody expected. She chose grace over war. But Marcus is already planning round 3. If you were So-yeon after what Elena just did for Chiho, would you still be her enemy? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us where in the world you are watching from tonight. Let's light up this comment section from every corner of the globe. Share this story with someone who needs to see what a real queen looks like. Click the video on your screen for more stories of power, betrayal, and redemption. And if you are not subscribed yet, you have been missing out from the very beginning. See you in part 3.